Hello, everybody. Hi. I'm Brianna. I'm Vice President of Recruitment for Sigma Lambda Gamma National Sorority Incorporated. We are co-hosting this event with National Organization for Women. And the event is based on morals, values, and empowerment. This is Professor William Berry, and he's a psychologist, a therapist, and he's going to do the presentation first.
Thanks. I'll try to keep it relatively brief. As Brianna said, my name is William Berry. Brianna is in one of my classes. I teach a few psychology classes here. And Brianna approached me a couple months ago, I guess, and said, would I do a presentation on morals, values, and empowerment? And my automatic response to her was, I don't have any morals. I don't know why you would ask me to do that. And I know that sounds funny, and it sounds like it's a joke, but I actually kind of believe that. I mean, it's hard to say you don't have any morals at all, but I don't really believe in morals. So this is going to be an interesting presentation, I guess. I'm really big on empowerment, though, so hopefully I'll make up for what I lack in morals with empowerment. Morals, defined by Merriam-Webster, is of or relating to principles of right and wrong in behavior, expressing or teaching a conception of right behavior, conforming to a standard of right behavior, or sanctioned by or operative on one's conscious or ethical judgment. Now, the reason I said I don't believe in morals is because morals are more handed down to you from your culture and from religion. And I prefer, kind of developing your own values. And I'm going to talk about that shortly. Morals are more associated, as I said, with religion and culture than our values. One may accept morals without question as through family or religious teaching. So some people, I don't know what your morals are. I don't necessarily want to ask a bunch of college students what their morals are in a short presentation. But whatever morals you have, you've accepted, you've learned them somewhere. Often church, religion, parents kind of pass down our morals. When one goes against cultural morals, they are said to be without morals. And this is frowned upon and judged negatively. Like if you really believed I had no morals, you would probably not want to be around me very much, because it might mean I might rob you or somehow take advantage of you. So when we hear that someone doesn't have morals, we usually view that negatively in this culture. Values are different than morals. When I first started working on this presentation, I looked up morals and what I wanted to say about morals, and I looked up ethics. And ethics were almost exactly like morals, so I decided not to really include that. And I went straight to values. Values are important and lasting beliefs about what is good or bad and desirable or undesirable. Values have major influence on a person's behavior and attitude and serve as broad guidelines. Values are adopted, chosen, and can be determined by the individual, as can morals, but values have less of a connotation of having been handed down by your culture or by your religion. So values are more, this is what I value. So I have values. Everyone has values. And one of the sheets of paper that I left on your chair are a value survey that you can look at outside of here probably. I don't know that you want to look at it here. I do have it on my desktop if we need to look at it, but it's Rokeach's value survey. It's probably the most famous value survey because it's what came up when I Googled value survey. I used it about 10 years ago. Well, I've been in Florida for 10 years, so when I worked in Philadelphia in addiction treatment, I used to use this survey or one similar to it maybe 12 or 14 years ago. So I actually knew that, I've heard of that survey before. This value survey allows one to prioritize their values. Basically what it says, this guy that came up with this says there's two types of values. There's terminal values, which are the values that, your end values, like the end game values. And then there's your instrumental values, which are the values that lead you to these terminal values, how you're going to get there. So, he divides them up. If you look on page 2, A comfortable life is a terminal value. Equality, wisdom, world peace, beauty, a world of beauty, pleasure, salvation, if you believe in Christian type values, are all terminal values, meaning that, that's kind of the end of where you want to be. That's where you want to end up. Salvation, for example, that's where you want to end up. You want to end up saved. Okay? And instrumental values help you get there. Some of the instrumental values that are on page 3, being polite, obedient, they're more like behaviors. Clean, courageous, forgiving. And then what he asks you to do, what this psychologist who developed this asks you to do, is to kind of rank them. And one of the pages got cut off, I apologize. I think you only have page 4, you don't have page 5. But page 5 would have been exactly like page 4, except instead of terminal values, it would have said instrumental values, and then it would have been the same, and you would have ranked them as well. He basically said you can cut these up. That's why they're printed like this. Cut them up and kind of arrange them and look at them and think about them, and then list them on that last couple of pages in the order that they matter to you. Because everybody doesn't have the same values. Everybody doesn't value the same thing. So, as it says, why is this important? The last paragraph on the first page. Several reasons. First, people tend to try to accomplish similar results using similar means in a variety of situations in their lives and relationships. Sometimes it's helpful to step back and see oneself through new eyes. So it's kind of help you evaluate, what are my values? Like, what do I value most? Do I value, for example, loving, affectionate, and tender more than I value being responsible? Like, which do you value more? Which one of those is more important to you? So it kind of helps you take a look at that if you're interested in that. If not, it's it's up to you to look at your values. It's really, I'm all about personal growth and kind of looking at yourself and gaining insight, and you're going to see that in this presentation. That's what I'm all about. Things that affect your values. Education affects values. Some people value education, some people don't. My family growing up did not value higher education. I didn't go to college until, I went to college for about a year when I was 22, dropped out, and went back when I was 29. Okay, so my family really didn't value it. They actually looked down on educated people. They felt they had no common sense, and they were just kind of dumb. Like they were book smart. That was like an insult. If my dad said you were book smart, that was an insult. And he used to say it to me a lot. Like, you're book smart, but you got no common sense. That's what he used to say to me. Well, who said yeah, right? See, my dad did say that, I promise you. So education changes your values. You come to college, you question, you learn to question a lot in college, right? I mean, one of the biggest goals of a college education is critical thinking. At least that's what I teach in Intro to Psych, and I think that's what the goal is to think critically, to not just accept what your professor says or what anyone says, to think critically. So you may start at some point, just through getting an education, changing your own values and challenging your own values. Major life events. Children affect your values. When you have children, it changes the way you think about life. What becomes important, like, having a good time, or kind of a hedonistic way of being, or helping your children in some way. Yes?
Oh, you kind of answered it. I was going to say, how does it really change your values or your morals from before to after if you have children?
Well, if we go back to, I didn't really, I'm kind of shooting from the hip here at this point. But if we look at some of the terminal goals, like social recognition, okay?
Oh, okay.
So maybe that was a high value before I had children. Like, I wanted to be recognized socially. I wanted to do these kind of things, okay? But then I had kids, and I was like, okay, that's not as important. What's important is providing a future, maybe, and making more money, not doing free public appearances or whatever, okay? So
Are you saying
I'm a bad parent, obviously. I have kids, and I'm not making any money, right? So I'm here for free. So you get my point, though. It can change them, right? An exciting life. is one of the terminal values. Well, when you have kids, maybe an exciting life doesn't become as important because you think about, oh, I can't go skydiving because what if I die? Who will take care of my children? Right? I know. I don't know why you're laughing at that. I know a lot of Latin women who, like, their whole life changed because they had kids. Like, they just became, like, they can't do anything anymore except, like, live for their children. So, you know, I think any of these could change if you had children, for example. Or midlife crisis. You know, you've heard of midlife crisis. There's a lot of debate in psychology whether midlife crises exist. Some say it does. You know, I read some psychology textbooks, and it's like the midlife crisis, you know, as if it does exist, and other ones deny that it actually happens. But a midlife crisis sometimes changes people's values. They get divorced. They start living for pleasure because they feel like, you know, I've been working hard all my life. I've raised my children. You know, they're adults now. They can take care of themselves. I now value sports cars and younger women and whatever else comes with a male midlife crisis. So divorce can change your values. Your value, you know, especially if you didn't want the divorce, you know, and you wanted marriage and you had that kind of, you really highly valued marriage, and then you get divorced, it's going to challenge your values. And death. Usually, that's not your death because obviously you wouldn't have any values at that point. Someone else's death that's close to you can change your values or make you question them. Global events like war can change your values. Some of the values on here are national security, for example. Okay, when 9/11 happened, a lot of people who hadn't thought about national security in a long time suddenly became very concerned about national security. So it changed their values. Substances. You did ask me to talk about substances in some way, right? I'm assuming, because that's...
Oh.
Maybe
yeah.
not?
Yeah.
I thought you asked me to kind of... So I worked it into almost everything, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But when people become addicted to a substance, it changes their values. They weren't raised to steal and, you know, steal from their family. I got a call on my way out the door today by a mom, or from a mom, whose son stole her American Express card and took off, okay? And he has an addiction issue. So, you know, I'm sure she didn't raise him to just steal her credit cards and do whatever he wants. So he had the value against stealing at some point. Most of us are taught not to steal. And yet he did it. So his value changed because of the importance of drugs to him. Okay? Or substances. Trauma. Being a victim of crime can change your values. Medical illnesses will change your values. And unemployment can change your values. And truly encountering others. I think I included that because I'm a therapist, and I'm all about really encountering other people, which means like being completely present with them, really being open-minded to what they talk about and their perspective and their points of view. That's a kind of a Carl Rogers or Rogerian philosophy of really being with another human being. Empowerment is the last section, I think, of this, right? Of this. So we had morals, we had values, and now empowerment. Defined by Merriam-Webster as to promote the self-actualization or the influence of self-actualization. Self-actualization is, it's a term that has different meanings. For some people, it means just being all you can be, like becoming everything you can be. And if you use that definition, then empowerment is to help the person become all they can be. Okay, to use all of the power within them and to realize their power in situations. As a therapist, I spend a lot of time empowering people, and that's what I believe. Hopefully, I'm helping them to be empowered, and that's what that kind of says. Empowerment is one of the goals of therapy. It's assisted through education by self-understanding or insight and through reflection. Okay, it's kind of questioning yourself, questioning why you do the things you do, and then understanding yourself better. Most of what we do is called functional unconscious. For example, all the stuff I'm doing with my hands while I'm talking to you is functional unconscious. I'm not sitting here going, okay, now I'm going to put my hands together, and now I'm going to do this, and now I'm going to take a couple more. I just kind of do, I play with my hands when I speak in public. It's what I do. That's functional unconscious. A lot of what I say at times is functional unconscious. Like, how you doing? Like, the kind of automatic responses to people are functional unconscious. And a big goal of Eastern philosophy, which I tend to lean towards, and of therapy, is to actually choose your actions instead, and that's being more empowered. Rather than acting out of your automatic responses and your automatic thoughts, actually taking more control of your thoughts. I was sitting with a client a few hours ago, and that's what we were talking about. He has a lot of anxiety, and certain situations create a lot of anxiety in him, namely relationships, romantic relationships. And he just got into a romantic relationship, and he's experiencing all this anxiety, which then makes him kind of a pain in the ass to his partner, right? Because he's having all this anxiety. He's like, where are you? Who are you with? Like, he's always afraid he's going to get left or something horrible is going to happen to him in the relationship. So one of the things we spent almost the whole session talking about was him taking control of his thinking, because he's really into control in his life, into being empowered. He's really into that. When someone takes away his power, he reacts in a very negative, self-sabotaging way. So I kind of turned that around with him into taking control of his own thinking. Like, when he has these anxious impulses, how can he stop? Those are his automatic thoughts from whatever, his upbringing, his genetics, his chemistry, neurotransmission. He has more anxiety than other folks. Maybe GABA isn't working as well for him as a neurotransmitter goes. So he experiences this anxiety, but I'm trying to get him to take more control of his thinking. And I encourage everyone to do that, to kind of step out of their automatic self, the way they generally are, and kind of be more empowered. When one simply accepts the ideas of another without question or thoughtful evaluation, she is not becoming empowered. Sometimes we just take people's word for stuff, right? We just accept that, oh, this is an authority, the authority said this is how it is. And, again, college kind of teaches you to question that. I was asked to include some stuff strictly about women, and I attempted to do that. According to a study by the Women's College of the University of Denver and the White House Project, at the current pace of progress, at the way we're progressing right now, it'll take until the year 2085 for women to equal men in leadership roles in government, politics, and business. That's horrible. 2085, how old will you be then? You'll be maybe dead. Right? Because you're talking, how many years away from that? That's 72 years from now. So yeah, you'll probably be in your 90s by the time you're equal. All the women in the room, by the time you're equal to men, you'll be in your 90s. If we keep going at this rate of progress, hopefully we're going to speed that up. That's the assumption. I'm sure that's why they did this study. Additionally, women have the best health in states in which their earnings, employment, autonomy, and political participation are the highest. In other words, women are the healthiest in states where they have the closest to equal rights, and they're the unhealthiest. They have the worst health, physical health we're talking about, in states in which they score the lowest on those indices. So what that's saying is the more you're treated equally as women, the more women are treated equally, the healthier they are. The more power they have, the more empowered they are, the better their health, physically. Okay? So that's about all I included for women, actually. Oh, no, I got a little more. One more slide. Yay. One more slide. Social gender roles continue to subjugate women. And I guess one of the things I wanted to say here is, if you look at television, what are your favorite television shows, movies, and video games? There was a huge argument recently about video games and the way women are represented in video games and women heroes and how rare they are and so on and so forth. To the point where a woman that pointed that out was threatened. They were threatening to harm her in physical ways because she pointed out the fallacy of video games when it comes to women roles, okay, and the way they're portrayed in video games. But even if you ask yourself, what's your favorite television show? How are women portrayed in that? Are they portrayed as equal? My favorite director is Quentin Tarantino, and he tends to have very positive women roles, like Kill Bill. I mean, I don't know how positive. She goes around killing a lot of people, but it's a strong feminine character, and he was kind of praised for that because typically it's a male character, and the woman is being rescued. I don't know if you saw Seven Psychopaths. Did you guys? Anyone see that movie? You should have seen that movie. Everybody, right? Did you like it? Oh my goodness. Okay, it's like my favorite movie of 2012. Huh?
It was okay. I kind of felt
It was outstanding. Okay, it was okay in your opinion. I highly recommend it. It's a funny movie. And what it's about, though, it's not important. It's about 7 psychopaths. That's what it's about. It's about 7 people who kill other people and only really care about themselves. And it's about a playwright that's writing a movie about that. And in one point, one of the lead characters says, look at your women roles in this movie. It's kind of a movie that looks at movies. And he's like, all your women are dumb or sexualized or something to that effect. Like, none of the women in this movie that you're writing have intelligence. None of them are empowered. So they actually change the movie a little bit because they're writing it at the same time to have a more empowered woman. Yes?
I think it's interesting to have that kind of insight about social commentary about gender. Actually, Quentin Tarantino and Django, I don't know if anyone...
Django Unchained.
Yeah, well,
Django.
I don't know if anyone caught wind of like E.T. or when we were talking about the social commentary that was being made about race and gender.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, he was very good about including how women are seen as second-class citizens, like the N-word, you know what I mean? He made a specific part of the movie, a scene where the members of KKK were putting on their hoods or whatever.
Right.
And one of the guys made a joke. It's like, oh, your wife is so dumb, you can't even cut holes in this thing. So that's the kind of social commentary that's made, with race and gender. That's second-class citizenship.
Right, and I think it's happening way too much, and that we're just accepting it. Like, I don't know what your favorite television shows are. Mine is probably Bob's Burgers at this point. I don't even know if you know what that is. Or Family Guy. I love those. I love Family Guy, but it's going downhill. But Bob's Burgers is kind of up and coming. Or Archer, okay, another show that I like a lot. Definitely subjugate women. Yes.
So you mentioned Kill Bill and being praised for like the strong.
I did mention that.
That's actually my favorite movie. So how would you feel about the fact that even though she is strong and most of the assassins are also women and they're strong, but they still answer to Bill. At the end?
Well, she doesn't at the end, right?
I'm saying that they all worked for him. They're all under him.
Yeah, I would say that it kind of shows how our culture is, and that women don't have equal power. When Obama was running for president, when he was trying to get nominated, and it was Hillary Clinton and him were like neck and neck, and he got nominated, he won. One of the things I said to a colleague was, I'm really surprised, because I see a lot of racism in this country, so I was surprised that Obama was able to get elected. I was very happy about it, and thought that it was progress, but I was like, wow. And what she said when he won the nomination over Hillary Clinton is that it shows that those that are small-minded would rather have an African-American man than a woman, period, as president. Like, that's how we think. So I think that does relate to what you were saying about second-class citizens and so on and so forth. And I think we accept way too much of that in this culture, and that it's evidenced in what we watch and how we just accept these images and these stereotypes and these roles without much question. No one's really saying, hey, I don't like the way women are portrayed in whatever, okay? Although sometimes they do, because Tiger Woods is catching some stuff right now for what he said. And Nike's advertisement, because he said winning takes care of everything. I don't know if you saw this. And Tiger Woods has always said, like when they ask him, when are you trying to get back to #1 ranking? He's like, winning takes care of everything. Like, the only way to be #1 is to win. That's what he's kind of saying. He wasn't saying it in a negative way at all. So Nike used that quote with his picture, and he's sizing up a putt, and they use that picture, and people are saying it sends the wrong message, because it's as if, you can cheat on your wife and do whatever you want, and then winning takes care of everything. So, I don't know. I don't know if we always just accept the images, but Tiger Woods is like a lightning rod for anything, because he did have infidelity. So, going back to empowerment, and this kind of goes exactly what we've been talking about. Don't go by reports, by legends, by traditions, by scripture, by logical conjecture, by inference, by analogies, by agreement through pondering views, by probability or by the thought. This contemplative is our teacher. When you know for yourselves that these qualities are skillful, these qualities are blameless, these qualities are praised by the wise, these qualities, when adopted and carried out, lead to welfare and to happiness, then you should enter and remain in them. And Buddha said that. This is kind of an abbreviated to don't listen to anyone, don't listen to any teachers, don't even listen to me. But that's a fake Buddha quote. Like, they just kind of summarize this, okay? Because he wrote those scriptures. The Buddha scriptures is Buddha's teachings. So what he's saying is, don't even listen to me. Don't listen to anyone. Try it on for yourself. Listen to them, hear them, try it, and if it works, if it leads you to better welfare and happiness, then adopt it. Yeah.
That kind of goes along the lines with self-actualization, right? When you make your own decisions.
Right, because Maslow was very big on not sticking to culture. That was a question on the last exam, right? That not to stick to culture, okay? Not to follow what's been handed down, to think for yourself, absolutely. I kind of went like this. On one end of the spectrum is delving into oneself, right? And that's kind of evaluating yourself and thinking about the way you think and thinking about the way you are. And the other extreme, or the other end of the continuum, is letting go and being yourself, kind of just acting out of automatic responses. And then in the middle, or somewhere that I would say is more like the ideal, is creating oneself. In the class Personal Adjustment that Brianna's in, I showed a video from TED Talks. So you can Google this later if you want. I'll be putting this up on my website at some point, and you could just Google Ted Bajini, TED Talks. Is there a real you? And what he talks about in that video is, we tend to think of ourselves as different than our memories and everything else. And really, we are all of that. Like that, we are our parts, period. We're not more than our parts. We are our parts, our memories and whatever else. And we have the ability in every minute to create who we want to be. And I talked about that client earlier that I was telling him, to control his thinking, to become the master of his own thinking. And one of the things that we used as a technique is his ideal self. If you think of who you really want to be, like I know the me I want to be, okay? The me I want to be, what I try to do when I'm in a situation where I'm going to probably act very different from who I want to be, is I focus on who do I want to be in this situation. Like I want to be more serene. I want to be a calmer person. I want to be like the Dalai Lama, I want to just like radiate peace. That's what I want. I'm not there yet. I don't know if you've noticed. I don't radiate peace yet. But so sometimes in situations I look at, okay, how can I be that ideal person that I want to be? And that's creating myself in that moment. Why do people give up their power? And this is kind of what we were discussing earlier. Fear of responsibility. People like to blame everything else for the way things are rather than take responsibility for why they are the way they are. Too many choices, fear of choosing. That was another video that we saw in that class. That the psychologist did a study that the more choices we have, the less happy we are, because there should have been a better choice. There was always a better choice we could have made, and we didn't make it, and then we blame ourselves for it. In Erickson's stages of development, you probably heard of Erik Erikson's stages of development, identity foreclosure. That's when you take on an identity too early. Some people just are like, I'm going to be this. Like the military does that. I'm not against the military, but the military, you kind of get an identity. You kind, and you just, that's it. At 18, you join the service, and this is who you are. And if you stay in the military your whole life, that's who you are. So that's called identity foreclosure. You didn't really try on other identities. Erikson was big that in adolescence you try on different identities. You think about, I want to be this type of person or that type of person. You try them on. Identity moratorium is where you never choose an identity. You just kind of float around, adapting different identities at different times. You never really kind of settle down into one. Substance dependence, again, can affect your power. Evaluate, what can you do? So I guess that's the summation of this. You can question where your morals come from and look at what are your values and what values do you really want to adopt and put at the highest ranking. Avoid addiction, obviously. Be open-minded to others and be self-determined. And that is it. Thank you.